Meet Dr. Morenike Folayan, a renowned professor of paediatric dentistry at the prestigious Obafemi Awolowo University in Ile-Ife, Nigeria. Dr. Morenike spent her childhood years with her parents in Lagos and Akure, Nigeria. She had her primary education at Corona School, Lagos, and then moved on to Federal Government Girls College, Akure, where she had her secondary education. In 1989, Dr. Morenike graduated as a dentist from the Obafemi Awolowo University, OAU. Her pursuit of knowledge continued with a Master's in Business Administration, OAU, and a Master's in Education from the University of Nicosia, Cyprus, along with earning a fellowship of the West African College of Surgeons. Fondly known as Dr. Mo, she passionately mentors undergraduate and postgraduate students in clinical and research skills, as well as in bioethics, adolescent sexual and reproductive health, community engagement in research, and HIV prevention and treatment research. Dr. Mo's commitment to excellence is evident through her active involvement in various professional associations, securing numerous travel scholarships and research grants nationally and internationally. Her extensive contribution to the academic community extends to serving in various capacities in national and international associations, committees, and projects. In the College of Health Sciences at Obafemi Awolowo University, she served as the Deputy Director of the College of Health Sciences Research and Partnership Advancement Unit. She also led the Research and Innovative Support Unit, where she collaborated with various units to enhance the research capacity and outputs of the college. An avid researcher and a prolific author, Dr. Mo is a member of multiple research groups, has authored 4 books, contributed 11 chapters to books, and has 340 published manuscripts to her credits. Her impact extends globally as a peer reviewer and editorial board member for 26 high-impact factor health-related journals. Dr. Mo's research endeavors delve into the epidemiology of caries in children, with a particular emphasis on identifying macro-level factors influencing the risk of preschool children developing caries. Collaborating with colleagues, she is actively engaged in developing implementation models for integrating oral, mental, sexual, and reproductive health for adolescents. Dr. Mo also spearheads a global initiative program. With over 25 years of experience in HIV and AIDS research, her contributions extend across Nigeria, Africa, and beyond. Some notable projects include her role as a community liaison for the Microbiocide Trials Network and her involvement in the design and conduct of the Nigeria-Canada AIDS Vaccine Research Project. Locally, she has played a pivotal role in building capacity for civil society organizations, communities, academia, and health research ethics committees, facilitating engagements with HIV prevention research through bioethics and research literacy training. Her community work focuses on research literacy programs for key populations, including female sex workers, men having sex with men, and other key affected groups. Beyond her professional achievements, Dr. Mo is a devout Christian and mother of 3 wonderful children. She believes in instilling Christian values in children from an early age. Throughout her distinguished career, she embodies the spirit of leadership and excellence, leaving a lasting impact in dentistry, global health, and research. Get ready to be inspired as we delve deeper into the remarkable life of Dr. Morenike Folayan.
The word is focus. Focus. Sincerely, I'm not sure that I had that I was aspiring to something per se. But I am sure that for everything I laid my hand on, excellence was my watchword. That's what I'm sure of. But not that I said, oh, I want to be the vice chancellor, or oh, I want to be an executive director. No. But I'm sure that everything. I was also sure that all things work together for good. I was very sure of that. So those gave me strength in those dark hours. I was sure that, I guess my having been in Christ at a very young age, because I gave my life. I'd always loved God. I'd done many things around God, but I gave my life definitely when I was 15 in my part 1. And I grew. I knew that. I didn't grow because somebody grew. I groomed myself. So that gave me a backing. I tell you, many times in that journey, I lived many times, is there God? I went through those phases, is there God? Is it real? The only thing that anchored me during that time is I keep telling myself, when I spoke in tongues, it wasn't fake. When I spoke in tongues, it wasn't fake. There must be God somewhere. I went through my downs, believe me. Come ask me personally what those downs are. Terrible downs. But in it, I had that anchor. When I spoke in tongues, it wasn't fake. There must be God somewhere. And gradually, in those downs, I came up. So what will I say to a young academic? I'm not sure there's anything per se other than, look, you must be focused. You would have to make choices. You will have to make choices. When those choices need to be made, if you're in Christ, ask. He will direct you. If you don't hear, just let go in Him. And don't be afraid to fall. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. Don't be afraid. In it, you will find your route, but it must be focused. Never settle for mediocrity. Never choose wrong as the right way. When you choose the right way, it will be tough. It will hit you. You can lose your job. You can do a million and things. But don't choose the wrong alternative in a way to get out of tight ropes. I think it's a lot easier now for female academics to get married. But I guess many times raising kids and supporting your spouse might seemingly get in the way, but you have to make the choices. And whatever choice it is, it must be respectful choices. It's not like I'm a female and then my family is secondary. No, they're tough choices. I can't give you a formula. But when you have to make those choices, seek counsel. And if you have God, I think find that. I'll end up by saying there's somebody I study whom I love very dearly. And that's Professor Mrs. Fatusi. I think of her a lot. When I knew her in school, I knew her to be extremely ambitious. Not destructive ambition. Professor Fatusi, in our school days, is probably a person who would aspire to be the first female president of Nigeria. That's the kind of ambition she had. I personally think in my evaluation that she chose to succumb her ambition to support her husband. This is my personal evaluation, and I look at her. So you can see, I raise it because that's somebody who made a choice. She made the choice then. Maybe at the strategic time, it's about her husband. And she lets go. Professor Wattis can be the provost. She can be the vice chancellor. But she lets go of ambition. Her ambition to support her husband. I've never said it anywhere ever. But this is what I studied with her because I knew her. I knew her as a student. So that is somebody who's made a success. She's happy. Well, that might not be your choice. If you want to, good. But if, as an early career researcher, your ambition is you want to be the first female president of Nigeria and you want to run it, run it. Run it. Run it with your spouse as much as you can. Divorce is not the way out. Don't choose it. But if it comes, embrace it. But run it. Be focused. Don't give up yourself. Because when you get older, you will be unhappy. Make choices that when you look back, you're happy with it. Don't make choices that when you're 70, you look back and you regret it, and then you live miserable until you start telling the story, I could have been, or I wish I could. Don't give room for those stories. We all live fundamentally in the research. It's just that the levels of research you do, like I share, anybody that goes to the market, you did the research, you know that let me go to Mama Leke rather than Mama Folusha, because the food of Mama Leke, our food stuff is cheaper. That's research. Or let me put 2 cubes of Maggi in this 5 jar of salt. But when if I use not cube, it's 2. If I use the other one, I use 1.5. It's research. So so you can see that research always improves the quality of life, whatever it is. Or you want to take your child to school. Let me do Corona rather than Grange. It's research. Some would choose Grange, some would do research, but Corona. But it's based on those evaluations. So research is fundamental to all our life to improve the quality of what we get. Anybody that doesn't do it and just runs life like that, it's not quality. You just run life. But when you make it a career, which is for me a career, which is what I love and why I do it, it's because I see it as supporting the generation of evidence that can improve the quality of the life of a population. And it matters that I put those evidence as often as I can in those spaces where it will be taken up and used positively. National level, regional level, global level. So that's the critical thing and it must be good quality research so that once the evidence are there, it surely would make a change, when it's used and it drives. So that's the big thing, I remember very well, I think Professor Fatus is saying things about, or people talking about public health. But the big deal about public health is that you are able to reach large number of people. So that's what doing those researches for me. It's a social value. You have the grace and the power of your training to pull data together in a way that you can tell a story that can impact life positively, change things positively, improve adolescent sexual and reproductive health, ensure. But I think for me, one of the advantages I've had and I've grown myself is that I don't just generate evidence from research. I also have the competency to advocate with my data. So when I generate evidence, I can get into those policy spaces and drive change with the data I generate. So I think that also enhances my work and expands my field, not just sitting behind the 4 walls of the university, but I befriend policymakers, I befriend donors, I befriend media. I'm a very big fan of the media and I work a lot with the media because they can take your data and change it to layman's language and project it in the spaces where they can very well be used. Yeah, I think it's like changing the paradigm, and it's not about publishing so that you get promoted. It's about publishing so that you can impact life and at the same time you can make income, and prosper. I mean, academics is meant for you. It's not a punishment. I think one of the big things we've done is also try to start opening up those spaces that allows you to do a lot more research that's of social value. For one, if it's pushing on the entrepreneurship front, there's a lot of investment in entrepreneurship thinking. And one of the, I'm not sure you know the statistics, but Ile-Ife is the highest producers of CEO of startups in Nigeria and the 3rd in Africa. So you can see that although it's not conscious, we've walked that path. Now we're walking into some level of consciousness. And one of the things we're looking forward to doing next year, that's 2024, is to work with the Institute of Entrepreneurship to work with staff to enable them understand what it means to bring the entrepreneurship piece into everything they're doing at all levels through all academics. So that's a paradigm shift you're starting to see. ACE is an excellent example. They're starting up. I think Professor Farber already also years back was very keen on dedicating sites for startups, and I think ACE is already taking that forward, where we have land and it's an asset. And so if people want land as asset for startups, we can make and support that. At the Central Office of Research, it's about there's a lot that has to do with funding. We can't shift from that. So we are thinking critically in-house how to generate funds, even small as it may be, to support those little research that can generate things of social value and can translate. But we don't end there. We also work with the media to increase the visibility of their work, and we are also strategically looking forward to positioning our staff into those policy spaces so that they can move the work they do into those policy spaces, not by accident, but intentionally making it happen. It's a lot of work to get these things done, but I think the power that Ife has is that it has those people that are already thinking like that. And gradually, it didn't start with me, it started years ahead of me, with excellent directors that had started the place and had visions. And I'm only growing what they had believed in and expanding that vision. So yes, I'm sure in another 10 years there can't be any other university in the country but Ife. It's going to be the reference point, believe me. It's going to be the one reference point there is. So I can't tell people it's not greatest, it's great Ife. There aren't two. When you say almighty, you don't see the greatest God. There's only one. It's great. Then we don't compare. All those ones that say great are greatest, it's because they have comparison. There's only one us, great Ife. We're not comparable. Yeah, well, it gets people promoted. That might be their own end goal, and it's okay. But I think they could do a lot more. Well, in Ife, we don't do publish or perish anymore. We do innovate, publish, and prosper. Okay. And flourish, that's the one. Innovate, publish, and flourish. That's what we do in Ife.
On and off effect of estrogen is taken away from your body every month. If 1 million people die, 68,000 of them were killed by alcohol.
Before I went to Zimbabwe, I reflected, and when I went to Zimbabwe, I reflected also. I think for many of my generation, like I said, I was there at the very beginning of HIV, very beginning. I think a lot of my peers also get tired and they've moved on. I think so. And then when I was in Zimbabwe, I told a friend, in this space, I just felt, Morenike, it's time to move on. Why? Because you see things going around in circles. I mean, like you noted, why are we still here this time? I think it's one or two, not one or two things, one of several things. One, the HIV system has operated as a silo. We didn't take it as a development issue which is encompassing. What does that mean? It's not entrenched in primary school, it's not entrenched. You say you go through the entire educational phase, kind of, you brush HIV on the surface, then you finish, and then you start to have extra training to understand the depths of HIV. It doesn't work like that. I'd already talked about this issue of stigma a long time ago. HIV stigma cannot be addressed in the culture that stigmatizes. The Nigerian culture is a stigmatizing culture. It's a culture where there's an awareness. There's so many things around us that shows that we stigmatize normally. It's a routine part of life. We have the Osu culture, if you remember that. It's a stigmatizing culture. We have people who patronize sex workers and then stigmatize sex workers. They're labelly wrong, but they're the ones that keep the business. But then, there's always a right and wrong, people, right and wrong. It's a culture. Without addressing that fundamental, we can't address stigma because it's a culture of stigma. We live a culture. If it's not HIV, it's TB. If it's not TB, it's one thing or the other. Yeah, so like I said, I think it's the stigma culture. So if you don't deal with stigma as the root, a culture of stigma, we're not going to really get out of the HIV stigma in a long time. It's a slow progress. And I think the third thing is that our HIV response has been driven largely by donor interest rather than indigenous development of solutions. So they bring fund, it's a KP program, and this is how KP should run, rather than indigenous growth of programs. We don't see that. So why it worries that there might seemingly be success once the donors go, you're going to have a rebound. Because it's not institutionalized. For example, I was very recently going through things like the HIV stuff, testing you're talking about. It's facility based. Everything, you always end up coming to facility. And I think that facility is a big deal because you want the numbers, attribution. But look at realities of life. We are not facility-based people. We are not. Check all the investments in antenatal care. We've never moved beyond 48% of birth, skilled birth. How many years? We're not facility people. It's a norm in West Africa. We don't go to facilities. We don't take preventive care in facilities. We don't go to facilities except it's life and death. And then you continue to build HIV response as a facility-based response, including the self-testing, including testing. What success are you going to make? So you're not taking the realities of the context of our lives to inform solutions. So I think we're making success with our 90-90-90. I also know that you can run data the way you want it to run. But I am concerned. I'm concerned for two things. Because the success is about 5% left behind. And which is okay with public health. If you have a 95% success response, you succeeded. But believe me, I tell people our 5% is bigger than Botswana as a country. Our 5% is bigger than putting Botswana and Namibia together. It's actually bigger than 3 countries together, actually. So when you leave 5% behind, you're definitely going to have a rebound, especially when you're not planning on how to continue to address that 5% after 2030. 5% may be nothing in Botswana, but 5% is 3 countries. So what's going to happen? So those are my concerns. Yeah, I'm not. And once the country is not driving the agenda and it's the donors driving it, you're going to continue to go the donor's way. You have to take the program out of the hands of the donor, redesign it in a way that you're responding truly to your needs. And it's not siloed, it's development oriented, which means it's integrated to a whole number of things and you're not looking for attribution. Your success is the developmental outcome, not the number of HIV or TB or malaria. It's a development that you want to see. Once you all as a whole start to go that direction, you'll see true changes. And I think the SDG village, because I went there to evaluate, is a success story. We had I think 2 SDG villages, not SDG, MDG. Check what they did. If you can model that. The villages used the developmental model where it wasn't about attribution, it was the success was a whole, not siloed. And see what happened. In 10 years, there was a move, very good move. But it was a collective. Agric was there, health was there, transport was there, everything was integrated. And you saw change. Quality change, sustainable change. That was driven from inside. That's how you can have sustainable HIV. And once we continue to say it's HIV rather than an integrated thing, you'll be looking for siloed money. Yeah, I mean, I'm more of a pessimist, I guess, but that's my... In a meeting, I was shocked. I was invited by, I think, New England Journal of Medicine to do this group things for weeks. HIV was one of the lowest response. That was the first time in my life that I realized that a small group of people, very small. I was shocked when I saw the profile. There were lots of responses in other fields. HIV, it was just said, look, we continue to speak with ourselves and think we're important. You're just a siloed, small chop of people that thinks the world is there, whereas the world is not with you. And so once we try, and that siloed money thing and less so developmental thinking that doesn't allow us to cross bridges. You cross bridge into climate, you cross bridge into AMR, you cross bridge into maternal and child in critical ways, not just because of HIV. You stop thinking of an HIV face all the time. It can bloom. I guess we all need the money, so we stay siloed. A tough question. Very tough one. I don't know how to play. I'm learning how to play. I actually don't know how to play. But I like laughter. I love laughter. I like gisting. But you don't have people who are always gisting. I discovered, and I discovered two things. I didn't know I had a crowd phobia. But I had to take time to, one incident happened, and that was when I stopped and said, look, there's something wrong here. I don't go to parties. I give excuses. The best of my own party was when I was 21, and it was just 12 people I invited. My 50th birthday, it was just with my kid. So I knew I always like small things, and I don't mind being alone. But I went for a friend's, I did my brother's wedding, I wasn't there. Though they would say I was ill. My grandparents' burial, I wasn't there. Immediately they do the burial ceremony. I just left. My father's burial, my own mother's burial. After they buried it, went to put people in the burial. I'm gone. So this one, I went to a friend's wedding in Benin, and I sat. But I knew if I didn't go, they would say I didn't go. So I sat. Then, of course, when I sat, I always go in with my drivers. So I asked the driver to go out to bring some servants. This must be about 6 or 7. I guess they wanted to stop at 4, but they didn't start. And I'd made an arrangement. I booked to stay. At 7, they didn't allow him in. The security didn't allow him in. I set out to Ife that night. And then he had a flat tire somewhere along the road towards Ore, and the driver had to come from Ife to come and pick us. That made me stop, that there's something, this is not normal, that there's something abnormal about this. And it was in that process of reflecting that I now realized that I had crowd phobia. I can't stick crowds. And for example, now, Damiloju's wedding, I loved it, but I had to leave. I had to leave. I wasn't coping anymore. So I have crowd phobia, so I've recognized that. So I don't do crowds. I don't go for parties. I don't do that. And then the second thing I discovered, I like work. You may call it workaholic. I felt very abnormal about it for a long time. I felt it wasn't a nice thing. I wasn't happy. I wasn't sad, but I felt it was not normal. And then I met a friend who I just couldn't believe it. She was probably worse. I think she's worse than me. And then she identified as, she's a workaholic. I said, wow. So there's somebody else out there. And then I met a third friend who is exactly like that. We walk into the night. I work very late. I can work to 2. And when I'm doing it, I'm enjoying it. I really am enjoying it. And then when I met Robert, I just said, I'm normal. I'm not abnormal. So. And then I accepted myself. So, then I think I'm fortunate. I have a lot of people around me who understands that I'm not in those spaces where I love laughter. I love gisting, not gossiping. I have people who understand that, and they can share that space with me, and then they understand I'm not lonely. I like that I'm not living alone. I like it. I don't feel up. No, my auntie has tried to get me, at least get a house help or somebody to stay. I don't want. I'm conscious also, very conscious that once I'm 70 and all the work is gone, and I'm, all those things that is occupying my space, I sleep with my laptop at my side on my bed. So I just wake up and I just turn and I'm doing work. So yes, I like it. Gives me time. I reflect. I think a lot. I tell people that I'm that highly productive with my research activity because my life is not conventional. I don't have a husband who's bothering my life that wants to eat food and then I'm the one to cook his food. I don't have kids. I live alone. My time is mine. So I can never be an example of what it means to be productive because I have all the time to myself. I'm in the academia, which is very flexible. It's not like, other places where you have to return work. And that's all. I'm going to travel the world. I know the year I'm going to die. Ironically, I know how many years I have after 70. I do know. I'm privileged now. So I'm just gonna tour the world after 70. I stop work. My kids know. I tell them, now, okay, so you guys just plan who's going to pay for my tour 1 year. That's how you should do it. Year 1 you pay, year 2 you pay, year 3 you pay. Then when you finish, I have 3 adopted kids also, so it's 6 years. But just plan because I'm going to tour the world. I'm not going to make income. So, and I've given you long notice. Oh. And I keep telling them I'm giving you long notice. Oh. So yeah, I'm going to tour the world. Every place I wanted to go ever, I'll go. Nothing. I love my life. Nothing. It's a beautiful world. Maybe do this one and everybody gives their life to Christ. Maybe. But other than that, yeah, nothing. Yeah. If there's anything, as a final one, I think let's all learn to let people live. Be happy for people. The critical thing, is accept every other person for who they are. Just be happy to make people happy. Just be happy. I remember when I was growing up as a Christian, somebody said something and it stuck me for life. It talked about, in our own days, in our Christian world, we have big guys, Shadrach, Kenneth Hagin, there were just few people, not now that everybody's there in those spaces. That's this guy. Somebody was talking about him. I think he wrote a book. There was a very bad guy in England, either England or US, I don't know. Very bad guy, Let's say, for example, in our own contemporary times, Abacha. It's bad. So let's say somebody like that. And everybody talks negative about him. And then they ask this guy, this Christian, what do you have to say? I know all he said. He has beautiful set of teeth. That touched me for life. And as a Christian, you must give people the chance. You must give them. You must always excuse them and choose to see good. Never be found saying negative things about people. It's not that you keep quiet and it's in your heart. Train yourself to choose to give people a chance. Choose to see good, even in the midst of the evil. Because it is that good that allows people to bloom, not the negative that you keep hammering on. And it's a choice. The choice also allows you to move away from what is negative, if the person is toxic or something. But it allows you to support a flourishing. Because if the person turns out to be good, I've seen it so often in the system. When a person has made a mistake, he's going to live the rest of his life with that negativity, because that's what people will continue to say. And they'll be skeptical about the positive. And that doesn't help people, because it's a toxic environment for that individual. If we can allow people to bloom, and if we do that, you see that. I'm going to put a word for the vulnerable I know. You allow gay people, people that are different, queer, you just let them be, Let people be for who they are. Of course, if they break the rules and regulations, there's law to take them. I'm not saying allow for lawlessness. But, just be merciful and gracious to people. Love people, support people. Be kind to people. Care. You don't have to be everything. Smile. And don't be rude. Don't be haughty. Just let people live. Live and let people live. Yeah.